Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is now just 10 days away from its official release by Disney, LUCASFILM, J.J. Abrams, and even creator George Lucas, that is all set and ready to end the Skywalker saga and the sequel trilogy itself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future content. Now, one thing about Episode 9 is that we do know that this film, at the end of the day, is a very important film to Disney and Lucasfilm, and the main reason being is because it really does determine the future of the franchise and where things will stand once this film finally releases in theaters on December 19th. Depending on how well it does also will determine the future of the franchise and how things are really going to go by Disney and Lucasfilm. Now, with that being said, we do know that Disney went through many different changes and adjustments throughout the months of August, September, and October in order to really fine-tune The Rise of Skywalker, to really restructure the plot, and to change the overall tone by Kathleen Kennedy, which I believe is something that a lot of fans have a lot of problems with right now, the fact that the tone of The Rise of Skywalker has been significantly changed in comparison to the initial cut of Episode 9. So, with that being said, on top of all of this, what's really intriguing has all to do with the changes that were made and something to do with George Lucas. Now, it's explained that through many of the changes by Disney and Lucasfilm during the months of August, September, and October, is that Disney and Lucasfilm made many changes and adjustments to the second and third acts of the film, where it's explained that throughout these changes, many scenes were deleted in the process, where it said that over 60% of George Lucas's scenes that he worked on was deleted from the film, and that Lucas was very frustrated over that decision by Disney and Lucasfilm of changing the overall plot of The Rise of Skywalker. It's also noted that during the reshoots of the film, Disney and Lucasfilm made many changes to the character of Palpatine in comparison to how George Lucas was going to handle the character in his initial cut. George was not impressed with how Palpatine was treated in the upcoming installment of the saga, and that is actually said to not agree with director J.J. Abrams with the decision above him of making Rey a Skywalker, where she calls herself Rey Skywalker. It said that in the initial cut of the film, George Lucas did not want Rey to be called a Skywalker, but to honor the Skywalkers only by burying their lightsabers under the sands of Tatooine just near the Lars homestead. However, Abrams, Disney, and all of them wanted to handle things differently by making Rey identify as a Skywalker and creating her very own lightsaber at the end of the film that is said to ignite a yellow blade. It's explained that George Lucas was very unhappy with how things were done during the reshoots of the film, as well as the rewrites, and that this all led to the delay of the art book of The Rise of Skywalker, as well as the reason why the novelization is not making its release until March of 2020. Now, the 60% of George's scenes that were deleted are actually said to only partially make their way onto the Blu-ray edition, and that not every single scene will be available on the Blu-ray of Episode 9. It's also noted that George Lucas did not agree with the identity politics being thrown into the film, as well as Disney's agenda. So let's go over a couple of parts about this and as to why this really is a big deal for the Star Wars franchise. Now, in case you guys did not know, George Lucas was, in fact, heavily involved with this movie. He was actually a part of many of the early rewrites of the film back in late 2018, before the massive adjustments took place later on in this year of 2019. And that's the problem with The Rise of Skywalker, is that I want to go over the big change here. Now, George is actually said to not be a fan of the fact that Palpatine was actually done in a different way in comparison to how he was going to handle things, where in the initial cut, Palpatine was absolutely dead, where in this new version of the cut, Palpatine is alive, somehow, some way, by using this new crane machine that is hooked up to Sidious, allowing him to live on. Now, the thing about that is that there's also going to be a lot of decisions made in the film, such as making Rey the chosen one, which is one of the big reasons as to why George Lucas was very unhappy with The Rise of Skywalker and the specific decisions that they have made for this particular movie. And it's not just that, it's also the fact that Rey calls herself a Skywalker, how she identifies as a Skywalker in Episode 9. So that's another thing here, is that this movie really seems like that they're really trying to do something a little too overboard, and a lot of things are really hitting those notes, is that Rey calling herself a Skywalker, or Rey becoming the chosen one, and Palpatine living on and not being, actually killed off in Return of the Jedi. All of these different aspects are exactly what George Lucas did not agree with for The Rise of Skywalker. And it's not only that, a lot of Star Wars canon material has been delayed and or saved until next year, where the official novelization is not coming out until March of 2020. That's a long time. And the art book of The Rise of Skywalker not releasing until spring of 2020. It has been delayed. Pretty big deal. I mean, the fact that they're delaying a lot of canon material, I think it tells us that they really are trying to line up their new canon material with the rewrites and the reshoots that took place in August, September, and October. So, the thing here is this, alright? The Rise of Skywalker is a very important film to Disney and Lucasfilm because it is going to determine the future of the franchise and where things will actually stand for Episode 9, right? So, the thing is this, Kathleen Kennedy is said to be the head of Lucasfilm, the president of all things, Star Wars. And this all is rooted to Kathleen Kennedy. It's one of the main reasons as to why I believe that Kathleen Kennedy needs to be replaced and needs somebody else to take over as president of Lucasfilm. Now, mind you, her contract is up in 2021. Hopefully she will retire, and hopefully at that point in time, she will, look for somebody else to take over for Lucasfilm, maybe somebody else that is a bigger Star Wars fan. And the fact that, she is nearing the age of 70, I mean, you would think that she would want to retire from being a president of Lucasfilm and a Hollywood producer. I think 70 is the right age at this point in time for her. I think that she just needs to leave and just call it quits and have somebody else take over the role in order to give the fans the proper Star Wars material that they need. However, in my point of view, it almost seems like it's too late for a lot of Star Wars fans out there. A lot of fans are very fed up with how the sequel trilogy has been handled and how things have really been being just done by Star Wars, by Disney specifically, and how things have really been going ever since 2015. If you look at The Force Awakens, yes, it was somewhat of a rehash of A New Hope, but it was playing it safe. It was bringing you back into the Star Wars franchise. The Last Jedi is something that really disappointed a large part of the fan base that Disney and Lucasfilm kept calling a minority. And in fact, it's not a minority. And the thing that I think really annoys a lot of fans out there, including myself, is that the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, tends to always blame that it's basically the Star Wars fatigue is the main reason as to why the movies aren't doing as well, or why the box office of Solo: A Star Wars Story was done poorly. And it's not just that, the fact that their decision of slowing Star Wars movies down is because of realizing that everything is related to the actual Star Wars fans having a disinterest in the Star Wars films. It's not that that we have a disinterest in the actual Star Wars movies per se. It's that fans are just tired of poor writing of the Star Wars films. It seems like Disney and Lucasfilm don't really understand the difference there. And all the changes that took place and how George Lucas, reacted to all of that apparently, it really does make a big deal. It does. It really is a big deal because it tells us that Disney and Lucasfilm, they don't really know what they're doing. And as we approach 2020, it's going to be a very interesting year to see exactly what they're going to do with the future of the franchise. I think that we really are having a new backlash on our way. Maybe if not worse than The Last Jedi's. Based on a lot of the decisions that have been made for this movie, I think a lot of fans are going to have a problem with it. But, like I say, when we look at Star Wars, at the end of the day, I'm still a Star Wars fan. I'm still curious about the movie, regardless of my feelings, based on the changes and adjustments of Episode 9. And I'm still, very much intrigued with how they're going to handle, the actual ending of the film on screen, visually speaking. Am I going to be happy with it? Maybe, maybe not. Based on what I'm hearing, it doesn't really sound like a great ending at all. But I'll have to wait and see exactly what it's going to look like on the big screen, where it's actually shown to us, in the actual theater. So on top of all of this, guys, I would really like to hear what each and every one of you have to say about this below in the comments and everything related to this situation of the changes that Disney has made. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.